Hey y'all, movie retrospective time again. Doing a horror comedy musical.
Yeah.
This time. This actually won by a landslide. I don't know if it was a landslide, but it won by a very significant margin in the Patreon poll. It's weird because I love this movie, but I hadn't actually thought about doing a review of it until a couple of people, I guess on one of our previous shows, like in the chat, got to talking about it and was like, oh, you guys should review it. So I put it in the poll in the last minute and it won. So this is the 1986 version of Little Shop of Horrors.
It's hard to believe that this was 86.
It really is.
It just goes to show you how much practical effects have declined over the years. I mean, this was a long time ago, and that damn plant looks like it's alive. I mean, it looks like a real character, and people are like interacting with it. It doesn't look real, but it does look alive. It looks like an alien plant.
Yeah, and I kind of want to get into like how they did all the stuff with that plant, because I watched this movie probably like a million times, like in the late 80s. I had the soundtrack on cassette. I think I had it on video, like I taped it off cable or whatever. And it looked awesome back then, but I probably hadn't watched it for like 20 years or something. So when we were watching it again for this review, I was like, I cannot fucking believe how amazing that fucking plant looks.
Yeah.
And it's all puppetry and like animatronics and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's also the whole movie. The color filters and everything. It's a real colorful movie. It's obviously supposed to be something that you're seeing on a Broadway play.
Yeah, because that's
musical.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be realism. It's just entertainment. And it's an all-star cast, and everybody in it just hits it out of the park. It's real close to kind of like a horror version of Grease. I say it's as good as Grease.
Oh, easily.
Even though I kind of like Grease a little bit better. I think it's a little more nostalgic for me. I like the music a little bit better in Grease, but not by much. It's like Grease with Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. It's like that. I mean, it's that good.
I mean, I kind of feel like Little Shop of Horrors, again, this is another movie from the 80s where I couldn't find a single negative review of it. Yeah. Everybody that's seen this movie loves it. How can you not love this fucking movie? It's just so lovable. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's got Steve Martin in it, being basically like a 50s rocker kind of Elvis, but he's a motorcycle guy with his fucking bondage boots and shit, and he's like a sadistic fucking dentist singing like Elvis. Is fucking great, you know. And then his girlfriend, she's a beautician. No, she worked at a nightclub.
No, she works at the flower shop.
She works at the flower shop. That's right.
Yeah, with Seymour.
It looked like a damn beautician's outfit that she had on. But
she said she worked in a nightclub like nights. That was like her side gig.
Yeah, she's like this kind of New York kind of dingbat who's real hot, fucking fantastic boobs. And Rick Moranis is in it, playing kind of like this beta loser who ends up being kind of like the hero, you know, who finds a damn alien plant. And it's just a lot of cool people in there. Fucking Jim Belushi's in it. Just everybody. It's all-star cast.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Guest is in it. John Candy's in it. Like cameos. Bill Murray is in it, like in a cameo.
That's right.
It's just this is one of those things that just came together. And everything was just like perfection. You know, it's like everything about this is cool. Yeah. Like the look of it is cool. Everybody in it is cool. All the songs are good. Yeah. It's just the premise of it is hilarious because I love fucking, dark comedies like this. So in case you guys don't know, because I don't know if some people maybe that are younger and stuff don't know, but this movie has a really fascinating backstory of history. So back in 1960, good old Roger Corman, King of the Bees, as they used to call him, he made a little movie called Little Shop of Horrors. He made this movie reportedly in 2 days on sets that he had previously used for Bucket of Blood. Yeah. But the story goes, I don't know if this is true or not. The story goes that somebody bet him that he couldn't make a movie in 2 days, and he was like, hold my beer. And he did. Apparently, the original Little Shop of Horrors, which was not a musical, cost about $30,000 to make. And in it, he came up with essentially the same premise. Whereas there's a nerdy guy that works at a flower shop, who's a horticulturist. He ends up, actually in the original movie, which I actually have watched, the plant is not an alien. It's just a hybrid that he came up with. But it's the same story. The plant talks, the plant eats people, and he ends up having to accidentally on purpose murder people to feed to the plant, because the plant is growing bigger and bigger, and it's like making the store famous, and it's like making them a lot of money. So it kind of goes on like that. Fun fact, in the 1986 version, the masochistic dentist patient that's played by Bill Murray, in the original movie, that part was played by a very, very young Jack Nicholson.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And it is like super, super funny. Yeah. I think I saw the original movie like a long time ago, but I wanted to rewatch it like before we did this review. And that movie is fucking funny. Yeah. I didn't like realize how fucking funny a movie from 1960 could be, but holy crap, that movie is hilarious.
Yeah, that scene in this movie is also really cool. I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I didn't realize how much it was basically a homosexual bondage scene. That's what it is. And it is fucking hilarious. It's just, Bill Murray trying to be a gay sub who's just totally into the pain, and fucking Murray being this sadistic fucking alpha who's fucking pissed that he's enjoying it. And fucking really if you're somebody, some chick or some dude that has a crush on fucking Steve Martin, this is definitely his sexiest role. It is. He's fucking looking good. He's probably about 40. He's in real good shape. He's got fucking motorcycle bondage pants on and 60s retro fucking rocker motorcycle boots with the damn buckles that go all the way down, and then his fucking white dentist top on there with his fucking Elvis haircut and shit, and fucking he's just really hamming it up. He's kind of very much like Lux Interior.
That's kind of, yeah, I was kind of getting
Lux Interior.
I was kind of getting that vibe too.
He's kind of like punk rocker and bondage and Elvis, all kind of with a fairly decent Mississippi accent. Fairly decent.
And I have to say, I mean, as much, all the songs in this are good, but I mean, Dentist is the song that I kind of feel like everybody remembers.
Yeah.
Even though it's nothing to do with the plant. And the plant is amazing too, but I kind of feel like Steve Martin and Bill Murray came in with that sequence where he sings Dentist, and it's just almost like it steals the movie.
Now this is happening either in the early 60s or the 50s. So it's a period piece.
It's set in the early 60s because that's when the original movie was made.
That kind of adds to the fetishness of it. It looks like cheesecake art, the whole fucking thing. You expect Betty Page to show up sometimes, but it's a movie like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what ended up happening, so like I said, this Roger Corman movie, which was like just this cheap knockoff flick that, it was just like the bottom of a double bill with, I think it was Black Sunday, like the Mario Bava movie. And so they made that, and then for whatever reason, in the early 1980s, David Geffen and like some other people wanted to make an off-Broadway version of it. So, Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, who would later go on to do like a bunch of music for like some of the Disney animated like Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and stuff. So they worked on a lot of the songs for the off-Broadway version. And David Geffen then was kind of like, okay, well, now we want to make like a big screen version, because he thought it would be like this really, he thought it'd be really successful. So they had the songwriters in there. Originally, when they were first working on this, the movie version was supposed to be, and this would have been super weird, I think. The movie version was supposed to be directed by Martin Scorsese and produced by Steven Spielberg. But what ended up happening was that that would have been
great.
It might have been.
It probably would have been like this, though. It has that tone already.
Yeah, although I don't know. I kind of feel like it maybe wouldn't have been the same, but I don't know.
I would have softened it up some.
Yeah, and I kind of want to get into that too, because there's something about like an alternate ending, and I kind of want to talk about that because that's kind of like a big deal. But yeah, so there were like a bunch of delays because the screenwriter from the original movie was like, threatening to sue for this, that, and the other. So they didn't really get to it. And then like Martin Scorsese and Steven Spielberg bowed out. John Landis was kind of interested in watching, which also might have been entertaining because, he's pretty awesome. But then he kind of didn't do it either. So they ended up giving it to Frank Oz. Now, obviously, if you know anything about anything, Frank Oz, best known in his early days as a puppeteer, obviously. He did a lot of Muppets. He did Yoda. He Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear. He does, all the Grover for Sesame Street. And he was starting to parlay like his puppetry and stuff into directing. So prior to doing this movie, he had just done The Muppets Take Manhattan, which is probably my favorite Muppet movie. I mean, they're all good, but I think Muppets Take Manhattan is my favorite. So as soon as he was done with that one, he started working on this one. So he brought in pretty much like all the Jim Henson production team to work on the plant, the Audrey II. Now, I want to kind of get into, because like I said, when we were rewatching this, I haven't seen it in a long time, and I remember the plant being really cool, but I had forgotten what a fucking, I mean, it is just like a triumph of practical effects.
Yeah.
The way that this fucking plant
the lips
is.
on the thing moves, and it just looks like it's alive. And what's great about it is that CG can never give you a product like this, never. Because it is a character in the movie, and it's obvious that the actors are looking at it and acting with it, and it's just not the same with CG.
Yeah.
CG, they're imagining it being there. The eye contact really isn't there. It fucking is great, man. It's just, this is one of the greatest practical effects I've seen.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and I don't think anyone's going to argue with it. Yeah. This is easily one of the best, not just of the 80s, but just like of all time.
Now, it's not supposed to look alive. It's alien, and the tone of this is a musical, so it's a fantasy creature, but it looks like it's alive.
Yeah.
It doesn't look, it's different. When you see it, you see what I'm talking about. The colors are a little more candy colored, you know what I mean? It's not really kind of possible in nature. Some of the stuff is obviously plastic, but it's talking. You're buying it.
It just, the way it moves is just like so fluid, and like the way its mouth moves and stuff.
Yeah.
So they had like a bunch of, like I said, this is mostly the way they did Audrey II was all puppetry. They had like 60 people like working. If you see some of the back behind the scenes footage, which I've seen like some clips of, there's like tons and tons of people like working cranks and shit like that, like for all the tentacles and like all the leaves and like the little buds like later on.
They're talking too.
Like like at the later thing.
Yeah, the backup singers do the chorus and shit.
So they had like a whole bunch of different versions, because the plant, as you know, over the course of the thing, as Rick Moranis like keeps feeding it people, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So they had like 6 different ones, like 6 different sizes. And another thing they did too was that, you know, Mushnick's Flower Shop, they had, I think they built that set 3 times, like in different sizes, so they could do some shots in like forced perspective to make it look bigger. The thing that I didn't know about this movie, and the more, like, when I read this kind of blew my mind a little bit. So they said, what they did was that when they were first working on the plant, and they were trying to get the plant to, you know, sing, obviously, and Levi Stubbs from the Four Tops does the voice. He did like a lot of voice work for cartoons and shit later on as well, but he just like really makes this a character. It's just like amazing. And so they said, well, when we first did the puppet and we did like the kind of, you know, we were trying to get it to sing and everything, they're like, it just didn't look right, and we couldn't figure out like how to get it to work. And so then they said, when we were watching the dailies and it was going slower or faster, we noticed that when we like slowed it down or speeded it up, it actually looked more alive. So what they ended up doing, this like fucking blows my mind. What they ended up doing was that when the plant was talking or singing, they would play the song at like you know, like a quarter speed or something like that, and then they would slow-mo.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then they would undercrank it.
Yeah.
They said, which is easy when no humans were interacting with the plant. However, when you had scenes where humans were interacting with the plant, the humans had to do everything in slow motion so it would all line up together.
It worked.
And you would never, ever fucking know that. So, like, so anytime you see, like, you know, Audrey II and Rick Moranis, like, talking to each other.
Doing it in slow motion.
Rick Moranis is moving and talking in slow motion, because that was the only way they could get the plant, because then they could speed it up.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then it would look like the plant was, like, really talking, like, really quickly and stuff like that, because they said they just couldn't get it right when it was, like, at the right speed.
Poor Rick, just about a month ago, somebody just randomly ran up to him and just busted him in the mouth and beat him up. Do you know that?
I hadn't heard about
just
that.
A random attack during the damn shit that's going on in New York. He came out of his apartment, and somebody just ran up on him and just started beating on him. And then the dude ran off. Ain't that something?
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that.
Man, that's fucking terrible.
That is terrible.
Yeah, little bitty Rick Moranis.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, fucking, he's not even 1 Rogan tall. He's like 0.6 Rogans, 6.6 Rogans in height.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 1.2 Rogans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in case you guys didn't know, like I said, the story of this is basically Rick Moranis plays, a kind of a dorky flower shop worker, who finds a plant. It's kind of like a Venus flytrap, and finds out that it, drinks human blood. And it gets bigger and bigger. And like I said, the more it gets bigger, like the more famous the shop gets. Like, his boss, is giving him raises. He's getting famous. He's trying to get the girl and everything like that. And it's interesting because in the movie, it's kind of like Rick Moranis' character, whose name is Seymour. He's kind of like... He didn't kill, okay, so in the original movie, they do have the dentist and all that other kind of stuff, but in the original movie, the dentist isn't Audrey's boyfriend. He's just, like, the dentist, and he's just, like, a random asshole that, that Seymour has to go see the dentist because his tooth hurts, and, like, the guy's a dick, so he just ends up kind of accidentally on purpose killing him. In this one... And this is kind of strange, and I had actually forgotten about this aspect of the 1986 version, where Steve Martin's character, the dentist, is actually a real abusive boyfriend. Like, beats Audrey up, like, gives her a black eye, breaks her arm. And they almost kind of, like... make a few jokes about it. Like, she said, like, when he turns up missing, she's kind of like, oh, it'd be a miracle if he, was dead or whatever, because, like, it would save me all this money and, like, Epsom salts and ace bandages.
Yeah.
It's so fucked up.
Well, it's not realism.
I know.
It's all tongue-in-cheek shit.
But I had forgotten. Forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So I thought...
It's a Steve Martin character, you know what I mean? He's this ultra dom, abusive dom. He beat her up for falling off the motorcycle and shit. It is over the top.
Yeah, and
he's fucking sadistic. He's this dentist.
Yeah.
That's what, of course.
And like I said, the dentist song in this, it's like, holy crap. I still remember all the words like this many years later because, like I said, I used to have the soundtrack.
They're poking fun at the dental industry. Yeah. It's as if fucking dentists are all...
It's a disgrace to the dental profession.
Yeah. It's as if you have to be a sadist to be a dentist.
Yeah.
That's the joke.
But yeah, so the first thing is that when he, when Rick Moranis, when Seymour finds out that Audrey II, like, needs blood, and he's kind of giving it to him with his fingers, but of course he can't do that for very long. And so then the dentist actually, he goes there to kill the dentist, but he doesn't actually kill the dentist. The dentist kind of, like, dies because of his own misadventure. But Seymour does actually, like, cut him up and feed him to the plant, and then the plant gets bigger.
He was addicted to nitrous oxide.
Yeah.
So he would ride
that was
fucking
another thing.
Snort, he brings nitrous with him. And he had a special fucking respirator for nitrous when he was doing work on certain people. He was really getting into it so he could get high while he was inflicting pain. It's a great character.
The antique dental tools. And stuff.
Yeah. It's a great character. I think it's one of Martin's finest roles, or finest performances at least.
It kind of
really knocks it out of the park.
It kind of reminded me of him playing Maxwell in Maxwell's Silverhammer and Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's kind of a similar type of thing.
Better though.
But he's way more over the top. Yeah. I mean, just when he comes in and like just singing the dentist song and just punches that nurse in the face and then pulls that little girl, that little doll head off little girl's doll.
His performance was so good that I would suspect he had a cocaine relapse. Because Martin was great when he was coked up.
I mean, and if
just watch old Saturday Night Live when he was on there. He was fucking coked to the gills.
He might have been in this one too, because it is very, very. It's a very physical performance. Yeah. Like he's like the way he's like gesturing and stuff. It's just like very. It's very, very funny.
He had nerd rage. There was something about him he always had, but he plays a real cool character who's fucking really sadistic and fucking dominant and shit. And it's funny. It's like Lux Interior. Very much.
Yeah, it's funny because that actually did occur to me when I was rewatching it that is a very Lux Interior-esque type of character.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as it goes, like, and Rick Moranis, he chops the dentist up and feeds it to the plant. The plant gets bigger. And then he doesn't, like, then Mr. Mushnick, his boss, like, gets eaten too, but he doesn't really kill him in the sense that, because Mr. Mushnick just kind of, like, backs into the plant and then the plant eats him. And so there's kind of this thing where He wanted to get famous so he could get Audrey, but Audrey said she loved him anyway. And so he figures out that the plant actually is from outer space and actually just wanted to get bigger and like reproduce and essentially take over the world. So he decides that he has to destroy it. Now, it does actually try to eat Audrey, but he comes in the nick of time and saves her, and they have a happy ending where they go to this, little suburban home with like stripes on the lawn and little white picket fence and shit like that. Now, here's the interesting thing, though, and I didn't actually know this until pretty recently, because I had always seen like the theatrical version, which came out in 1986, which it wasn't a failure at the theater. It made money, but it didn't make as much as they were expecting. However, when it came out on home video, it like was a huge hit. Yeah. And subsequently like got a big cult following. So it wasn't like, real big at the theater, but it really kind of...
Well, Grease was like that.
Yeah, it was the same, because I kind of feel like a lot of people maybe don't go see musicals in the theater, or at least they did it in the 80s. So maybe that's what it was.
They'd see them, but they were never blockbusters.
Yeah.
It's a home video thing.
Yeah.
It's good. You can sit there and you can drink, you know what I mean, with your girlfriend or whatever, and fucking watch musicals.
Yeah.
Or you just sit there with your boyfriend and watch musicals. I don't know.
Or with your dog, or your cat, or your hamster. We don't know your life.
There's something about being drunk and fucking sing along with you because you know the songs.
Well, yeah.
And especially if it's kind of, there's an element of nostalgia to it. I think that they're the most effective when they're like that. Yeah. I put up there with Grease and Xanadu and shit,
Yeah, they're just like super fun. Yeah. And this one is super fun because, who doesn't like, I'm not a massive fan of musicals, but I really like horror musicals. And this one is kind of like a horror movie in the sense that it's an homage to old B-movies. And it's also a black comedy, and I love those. Now, interestingly, though, as dark as this movie is, as in it's a big giant alien plant that eats people, and, you have to cut people up and, like, feed them to the plant and shit like that, and also the whole domestic abuse thing, that's dark enough. However, the original ending of the off-Broadway play was supposed to be the same ending as the movie. And I hate to spoil it if you haven't seen this, but at the end of the off-Broadway play, Audrey, the love interest, she actually, Seymour comes in and like sees her in the plant's mouth and pulls her out. In the theatrical version, she lives and they go on and get married and they live happily ever after. However, in the off-Broadway version and in the original movie version, Audrey dies. And she actually, the last thing she tells him, because her wounds are mortal wounds, right? The last thing she says to Seymour, after he says, I was feeding, the people to the plant, like, so we could get rich and famous or whatever, so I could, get you as a girlfriend. And she says, well, after I die, feed me to the plant. Mm-hmm. So he feeds her to the plant, and then he's going to go kill himself. He goes to jump off a building. And then while he's up there, like a marketing guy comes and says, I'm going to take some cuttings off that plant and we're going to sell them all over the world and we'll be rich and everything. And by this point, Seymour knows that it's an alien and that's what it wants. It wants to like take over the whole planet. So he says, no, I can't let you do that. And so he tries to go in there to fight the plant. But the plant also eats him. So Seymour and Audrey both die. The plant... the marketing guy takes cuttings from the plant, sells little Audrey IIs all over the country, and then those Audrey IIs start getting bigger and bigger and take over the whole planet.
Like the Taylor Triffids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go on YouTube, and I watched this earlier today, if you go on YouTube and put in Little Shop of Horrors 1986 original ending, you can see the work print of the last 23 minutes. And it makes me really sad that Frank Oz and his team, they did an amazing giant plant rampage at the end of the thing where the plants are just like busting out of buildings and they're just like knocking bridges over and it's just like they're destroying whole cities.
That'd have been better.
And it's so fucking great. Yeah. And it was all done with like miniatures. It looks amazing. Mm. And I was just kind of like, so what that's actually how the play ends, right? Where Seymour and Audrey both die and the plants win. They take over the planet. because like I said, it was supposed to be like an homage to old B-movies. So apparently, they shot that ending, and then when they showed the movie to test audiences hated it.
Lamos.
Yeah, and I was like, back in the 80s. Yeah, nowadays you could do that and everybody would just think it was fantastic. Yeah. But back then, everybody's like, no, we wanted a happy ending. We liked Seymour and Audrey. Right. We don't want them to die. We don't want the plant to win. Yeah. So they had to they had to get everybody back for reshoots so they could show him like electrocuting the plant and like killing the plant and winning and saving Audrey and everything like that. So it was like this big pain in the ass. And it's funny because they asked Frank Oz about it, and he's like, maybe it's because I don't know why they would accept that, that sad ending or like the tragic ending in the play, but not in the movie. And he said,
it's a different demographic.
Yeah, and he said, yeah, that too. But he said maybe it's because like after the play is over, all the actors come out on the stage and bow, and it's like you can see they're still alive and stuff. Whereas like in a movie, you don't have that. But what they did was, back in 2012, they actually found all the footage that they had shot for the original ending of the movie, and it was kind of shitty, but they restored it all, and they put it they released it on Blu-ray like as the director's cut, and then they kind of took it around to theaters and reshowed it in the theaters. And they said they asked Frank Oz about that, and he said in 2012, he's like, I thought everyone was going to hate the ending again. He's like, but now everybody fucking loves it.
Yeah.
It's like the fucking plant rampage. Yeah. And like I said, they, go watch it because it's like, it looks really great. And it's like, it's...
Wouldn't mind owning that.
Yeah, it kind of bums me out that... the special effects team did all of that work.
And they threw it away.
And then they didn't even use it. And also, there was like a couple of songs that they cut out too. Like,
are they in there?
Don't Feed the Plants was supposed to be like the finale song.
Are they in the director's cut?
Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so they're in there. Yeah. So, I mean, I know they did cut out, I think, 5 songs from the original play, into the movie. And then they actually wrote one, the song Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, that he sings at the end, like telling Seymour that he's an alien, Audrey II. That was actually written specifically for the movie and was actually nominated for an Academy Award for Best Song that year, although it didn't win.
So the theatrical version that I saw today and what we're reviewing now, I'd probably put it up there in line with like Grease. But the new one you're talking about, the restored director's cut, sounds like I might put that one up there with like in Demon Street of fucking Sweeney Todd. Because that was true horror right there, horror musical.
Yeah,
dark ending and everything.
I mean, like I said, I watched the original ending like on YouTube. Yeah. And if you get the director's cut, they've restored the original ending, so it goes just the way the original movie would have gone that the test audiences didn't like back in the 80s. Now. And it's honestly, it's like, as much as I liked the characters of Seymour and Audrey, it would have been sad if they died, and it's kind of cute that they had like the happy ending and everything. I'm kind of like watching, the plant rampage ending, and I'm just like, yeah, I kind of think this might be better. And it's just kind of, it's interesting. And a lot of people that I was watching a lot of reviews of this, and a lot of reviewers nowadays, particularly like younger ones and stuff like that, are kind of like, yeah, nowadays I don't think anybody would have a problem with having an ending like that, with like the protagonist dying and like the plants just winning and taking over the earth. But I guess back in the 80s, everyone was bummed out by it and didn't want to see that. So, but it's funny because I didn't actually know that until recently that was the original ending, and I was like, I don't know, I might have liked that better. But yeah, so as I said, this movie, even if you don't like musicals, because I know a lot of people don't like musicals, but even if you don't like musicals, you should totally see this one, because this one is, I don't see how you could not love this movie. This is a delightful movie to watch. It's just like everything in it, it's just like funny. It looks great. The entire thing was shot on a soundstage. It was actually Pinewood Studios in London. They built, you can really see like the love that was put into this, like the artistry of it, just this whole, like the whole Skid Row set with like the train and everything like that. They built all of that. They built, the Audrey II puppet they built several of them because they needed them at different sizes. And if you just watch that fucking puppet and then look at like, the behind the scenes stuff that kind of detailed how they did that and how they got it to look the way it looks like in the movie. It's just fucking unbelievable. They don't do a lot of practical effects like that anymore. I mean, having like 60 people working on this one puppet and they all had to be like coordinated.
Jim Henson had a lot to do with it because people tried to do it after him. His son tried to do it after him, and the puppets never really worked.
Well, now Brian Henson, his son, did work on this one too.
Did
he? And Frank Oz.
Something about that art. Maybe it was because things became more HD, so it was easier to see flaws. I don't know, but I remember the puppetry started to kind of, by the time the 90s and the 2000s had rolled around, had kind of become kind of inferior.
Maybe it was just because they didn't have enough money in it, or they didn't, I don't know if like people didn't go into puppetry anymore.
Look at Yoda in the fucking Star Wars prequels. It just looked fucking stupid. It looked like a fucking green rubber fucking doll.
It did look
that
bad.
Grogu looks better. Looked better than
it
the
does.
fucking than the Yoda puppet out of fucking Phantom Menace. Shit looked like terrible.
It did. Well, it's like it. I don't know. It's hard to tell because it didn't look like the original Yoda, which annoyed me.
Yeah.
But it's like, because like I said, Frank Oz was the puppeteer on the original Yoda from.
His skin just didn't look right. It didn't look real. It didn't look alive. The original Yoda looked like a living creature. It had glass eyeballs, like a real glass eye. It looked like a real thing, pretty much. Most of the time.
And that's kind of the same thing about Audrey II, is that even though you said it's not realistic in the sense that it looks like a real plant, but it looks like a real character.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it looks like
like it's talking.
Yeah, it totally looks like it's talking. Yeah. It's moving around, like all of the, it's like limbs and tentacles and stuff that it has, like when it busts out of the pot and like it's got all this, it's just shit going across the floor and stuff. Yeah. It's like, I was just like watching it last night, even though I've seen the movie 100 times, but like I said, I haven't seen it in such a long time. And just watching, I was just like in awe at like just the way the mouth moved and the tongue and like all the mouth parts are moving. Everything up here was moving, like all the leaves and all that kind of stuff. And I was just knowing that there was somebody like, under the floor, like over here, like just off camera, like there's all these people with like cranks and shit like that and servos and whatnot. And it's just like operating that is just amazing. And then when I found out the shit about the plant being under cranked and like all the actors having to go in slow motion, so it would all kind of fit together when they speeded the film up. It's just, I don't know, man. It's like you don't see a lot of that kind of artistry that much anymore.
I don't think they care as much.
Either that, or maybe like all the real talented artistic people are going more into like digital effects, and you don't get as many people doing. Because I think like back in
model makers.
Yeah, back in the 70s and 80s, you had like tons of people going into like practical effects. Where it was like going to Tom Savini's school, or like Jim Henson was like kind of a big deal. They were making like Labyrinth and the Dark Crystal and stuff like that with like these amazing puppets and like animatronics and stuff. So because you were seeing that on the screen, you had like younger people coming out of school, man, I want to do that.
Yeah, well, that and making spaceships. All those Star Wars spaceships they were kit bashing. They would just buy a bunch of damn model kits of German tanks and shit, and flat pieces of plastic, and put all that together and make a ship. You know what I mean? And X-wings and Y-wings and Millennium Falcons. It's just tank parts and battleship parts and stuff. And it was convincing. Yeah. But you had to be artistic. Yeah. That was the British shit. It looked real. It looked like a real creature. The Italian stuff from like Star Crash and shit, you could tell that they were kit bashing. That's model parts.
Yeah.
They
didn't really make that much of an effort to
only a real genius can make a bunch of model parts that look like something that came out of a factory. Yeah. And it's all supposed to be together.
Oh, I wanted to mention too this when I was talking about the original who was supposed to originally direct this and stuff. I can't imagine like anyone other than Frank Oz and like all the puppeteering and stuff doing that now. You know who they wanted for the role that of Audrey, who Ellen Greene played, who actually she played that character in the off-Broadway version, which is why they ended up getting her in the end. But they originally wanted Cyndi Lauper.
Okay.
They asked Cyndi Lauper, which she would have been good too, I think.
Good, yeah.
But she didn't want to do it, so they turned it down. But so finally they got around to, and I think they also asked Barbra Streisand, but Barbra Streisand didn't want to do it. You have to think like Barbra Streisand was much younger back then.
Yeah, she was a bigger star though too.
Yeah, so maybe she's just like, no, because this is kind of like.
I don't know why Cyndi Lauper didn't take it. That'd have been right up her alley. She would have been immortalized in that. But
or maybe she was, I mean, I don't know if she just didn't want to do it or if she was like, had some obligation elsewhere. Like, because I think that happens a lot. I don't think it's so much like, oh, I don't want to do that, but I've already committed to like this other thing. Or something. Yeah, so it's like maybe that was why. But in the end, I'm kind of really glad that they got Ellen Greene to do it to like reprise her role from the stage play because she's like really good. It's like I know that a lot of people, and I kind of had this too when I was younger, like the way that she talks in this movie, like with that little squeaky voice that she has. Some people think that's like really annoying. But honestly, the older I got, like when I watched it last night, I just thought it was like kind of cute and like endearing. You know what I mean?
That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And
they had people that talked like that.
Yeah. And because it's supposed to be set, in the early 60s,
in those days,
it was supposed to be like all kind of doo-wop and that kind of stuff. So it really kind of fit in with that kind of...
It was supposed to be like the teeny bopper voice.
Yeah.
But New York.
And she had that big hair and like... Her little, like, every time somebody said something exciting, she'd go, eh! You know what I mean? It was just like so fucking funny. And she had like those crazy like fucking pumps and all that other stuff. And I also want to say too that I really liked the Greek chorus in this, like the three girls. Yeah. Crystal, Ronette, and Chiffon were their names. Named after some girl groups from that era. Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's on. We rented it on Amazon Prime. It's $3.99. If you want to see the original, which actually I'm kind of glad I watched it, even though like the original is not a musical. But the story's kind of the same. It's got some differences and it's obviously like super, super cheap, but the original is actually a pretty decent watch too. And it's actually like way funnier than I was expecting it to be, I guess. But that's on Amazon Prime it's on Amazon Prime with ads, and it's also on Tubi with ads. So you can watch that one for free. But if you haven't seen Little Shop of Horrors, totally watch it. The theatrical version, the one with the happy ending, is the one that's on Amazon Prime. I think if you want the director's cut, you probably have to get the Blu-ray, like the one with the plant rampage at the end, like where everybody dies. But I haven't seen like the whole movie like put together, but we watched the theatrical cut last night, and then I watched the just the last 23 minutes, with the plant rampage. And it's like, so I don't know, I kind of feel like maybe we should get the Blu-ray that has that version on it. Yeah. Because that might be like super cool. And like I said, I'm kind of bummed that last song got taken out, the finale song. But oh well, what are you gonna do? But yeah, seriously, if you haven't seen this, even if you don't like musicals, I would still recommend watching this because it's super, super fun. And it's just, I mean, just watch it for that fucking plant alone, and for the dentist scene, like with Steve Martin and Bill Murray, because that is fucking comedy gold.
Kind of steals the show.
It kind of does. Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, I think that when you search this movie on YouTube, videos of that scene kind of like overwhelm the rest of the stuff.
He does some fucking motorcycle impossibility. He's got this full dressed Harley, and he's all fucking rigged up in his bondage dentist outfit mixed with motorcycle stuff. Comes fucking pulling up to his office, jumps off the bike while the bike is still rolling, points at the bike, and it stops. I know. Which is an impossibility, of course. The brakes don't work that way.
It's just it's so funny.
And then the bike doesn't even fall over.
So funny.
Bike doesn't even fall over. You're like, motherfucker's got full command over everything. That's how Dom he is. Fucking right.
I mean, just, oh my God, just the whole fucking thing. And I had forgotten, I mean, like, I remembered the song and everything, but I had forgotten how fucking funny that fucking scene was. Like, which, oh my God. But yeah, seriously, if you haven't seen it in a long time, go watch it. Watch it for the dentist scene. Watch it for that fucking plant, because it's amazing. All the songs are amazing. It's just like a really, really fun, it's a really fun fucking time, So go watch it. All right, so that'll do it for this movie retrospective, and we will see you guys on the next one. Bye.